3 hours before they pushed me out of the company I helped build, my father-in-law smiled, slid a box of cinnamon rolls across the conference table, and asked if I wanted the last one. I said no thanks. Not because I wasn't hungry. Because I had already figured out exactly what they were about to do. Funny thing is, they thought they were taking my future. They never realized they were handing it right back to me. My name is Avery Collins. I'm 33 years old, and for almost 4 years I worked inside my husband's family business in Dallas, Texas. Everyone thought I had the perfect life. Nice house, good marriage, stable career. What they didn't see was that every promotion I earned somehow ended up with someone else taking the credit. My father-in-law, Richard Collins, was the CEO. Around the office, people called him a business genius. At home, he acted like I was lucky just to have married into the family. I kept telling myself that hard work would eventually speak louder than family politics. I couldn't have been more wrong. For 2 straight years, I built a logistics system that cut delivery costs, reduced shipping mistakes, and made our biggest clients happier than ever. Most nights, I stayed in the office until after 9, while everyone else had already gone home. My husband Ethan always had the same answer. Babe, Dad notices, just be patient. Patience. That word cost me years. One Monday morning, Richard announced we'd be launching the company's biggest expansion in over a decade. Everyone assumed I'd lead it. I'd designed the system. I'd built the client relationships. Heck, I had practically lived in that office. Instead, Richard walked in with a guy named Tyler. Fresh MBA. Zero industry experience. The son of Richard's golfing buddy. He shook everyone's hand like he'd already won. Richard clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Tyler's gonna head this project. Avery will help get him up to speed." For a second, I honestly thought it was a joke. Nobody laughed. I looked around the room. People avoided eye contact. Even Ethan stared at his coffee. That hurt more than Richard's announcement. I smiled anyway. Sometimes staying calm scares people a whole lot more than yelling ever could. For the next 2 weeks, Tyler followed me around asking questions he should have known before accepting the job. Where are the supplier files? Who approves these contracts? Why won't this client answer my emails? I answered politely. Not because I liked him. Because every answer reminded me how much of the company depended on work nobody even realized I'd done. See, months earlier, I'd convinced legal to let me personally manage several vendor agreements after fixing a massive compliance issue. At the time, nobody cared who signed the paperwork. Now it mattered. A lot. Then came the meeting that changed everything. Richard called me into his office. Ethan was already sitting there. Whenever both of them looked uncomfortable, I knew bad news was coming. Richard folded his hands. "Avery, we're restructuring." I almost laughed. Corporate America loves fancy words. Restructuring usually means someone gets thrown under the bus. He cleared his throat. "We're eliminating your position. Not reducing. Not changing. Eliminating." Just like that. 4 years disappeared in one sentence. I asked one question. "When's my last day?" Richard blinked. I expected more of a reaction. "You'll survive." He nodded slowly. "I suppose professionalism suits you." Professionalism had nothing to do with it. I was simply done giving emotional discounts to people who had never respected me. I signed the paperwork, turned in my badge, packed one small box. As I reached the elevator, Ethan finally caught up. "Don't make this personal." I stared at him. They already did. That was the last real conversation we ever had. The next morning, I slept until 9. For the first time in years, I wasn't checking work emails before brushing my teeth. Honestly, it felt amazing. By noon, my phone rang. It was Melissa, one of our biggest clients. "I just heard you left." I did. There was a long pause. "So, who's handling our account now?" "Tyler." Silence. Then she sighed. "Can I ask you something off the record?" "Sure." "Did you build that entire logistics platform yourself?" "Most of it." I figured. 2 days later, Melissa invited me to lunch. She didn't offer sympathy. She offered opportunity. "If you ever start consulting," she said, "call me first." That sentence changed my life. Within a month, I registered my own consulting company. No fancy office. No expensive furniture. Just a laptop, a rented workspace, and years of experience nobody could fire away from me. Melissa became client number 1. Then another client called. Then another. Apparently, companies liked working with the person who actually solved problems instead of the guy who took credit for them. Meanwhile, things inside Collins Logistics started falling apart. Tyler approved the wrong shipping schedule. 3 major deliveries arrived late. One warehouse nearly shut down for a full day because inventory records didn't match reality. Richard blamed everyone except Tyler. Exactly like always. Then the supplier contracts kicked in. Since I'd personally negotiated several agreements, transferring authority required updated documentation. Nobody had bothered finishing it before letting me go. Orders stalled. Payments froze. Vendors stopped answering. Richard finally called me. His voice sounded sweeter than I'd ever heard. Avery, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. I almost smiled. I think we were on exactly the right foot. He ignored that. We'd like to bring you back temporarily. As an employee? Yes. I looked around my tiny office. 3 clients. Growing business. Peace of mind. No thanks. We can increase your salary. I don't need a salary. What do you want? I told him my consulting rate. He actually laughed. Then he realized I wasn't joking. A week later, he signed the contract anyway, because by then they were losing thousands of dollars every single day. I walked back into that building through the front entrance. Only this time I wasn't an employee. I was the consultant everyone had to wait for. People stood when I entered meetings. Tyler barely looked up. Richard couldn't even hide his frustration. For 6 weeks I fixed exactly what my contract required. Nothing more. Nothing less. When the project stabilized, I handed Richard a final report. He looked exhausted. You planned this. I shook my head. No. You wanted revenge. No. What then? I wanted respect. He looked down without saying another word. Sometimes silence is the loudest apology you'll ever get. 6 months later, Collins Logistics sold nearly 40% of its business. My company doubled in size. We hired 12 employees. Every single one received public recognition for their work. Because I'd learned exactly what happens when leaders steal credit from the people keeping the lights on. Last spring, I attended a business awards dinner. Richard was there. Older, quieter, smaller somehow. As I accepted an award for Entrepreneur of the Year, I noticed him clapping. Not because he wanted to, because everyone else was. After the ceremony, he walked over. I'm proud of what you've built. I smiled politely. Thank you. That was it. No anger. No victory speech. No dramatic ending. Just peace. Walking away from that company wasn't the moment I lost everything. It was the moment I finally stopped settling for less than I was worth. Sometimes the people who underestimate you end up becoming the first audience to your success. And trust me, that's a whole lot better than revenge.